Hey there, creeps! Welcome to another Creepshow review. I am a huge fan of Creepshow. Creepshow is one of my all-time favorite films. It's my favorite horror anthology, and it's arguably my favorite horror film. I've reviewed that one. I've also reviewed the second film. I did a rant on the third movie, which I absolutely despise. And I even shared my thoughts on Shudder's anthology series. And recently, for the Halloween season, Shudder brought out of their bag of tricks and treats a new animated Creepshow special. And I don't think the folks behind Creepshow, Greg Nicotero and company, I don't think this was something that they had planned in advance. This was a last minute plan B. I think they intended to finish and stream season 2, but COVID made things difficult, albeit nearly impossible. So they decided to go a different route. And they easily could have not done anything. So I'm really happy with the fact that we got more Creepshow, even though it's not really on the same level of quality as the average episode of the series. That being said, I think it's still worth a watch if you're a fan of Creepshow and if you're a fan of anthology horror, at least for one story. And I'll get to why soon enough. Now, this special actually opens up very promisingly. So the film starts out with a really polished, really solid, well done intro sequence with the creep, and he is working on an intro for the animated special. He's sitting at a desk and he's drawing on a piece of paper, and this intro is really effective because the puppeteer work and the animatronics here are top notch. This is the best this creep puppet has looked. I think either they got a new puppet or they did something a little bit different with their intro here and their wraparound. I was honestly really impressed by the practical effects of the creep puppet in the beginning of this special. And then when you get to the intro, like the actual opening credits for the animated special, it's the same opening credits as the series, but with one key difference. The music is different. And the music is infinitely times better than the original intro music that they used for the opening credits for each episode of the Shudder series. Christopher Drake really went all out to do a heartfelt and wonderful tribute to John Harrison's style of music for the original Creepshow. And I always felt that that was something missing from the series for the most part, and it was really nice to hear that that was brought back. And you had the same kind of music stings and the same bits of the piano, but there was other things that were added into the fold when it comes to the composition, that it wasn't just a straight up copy and paste job. Really impressed with Christopher Drake's rendition of the Creepshow music for the animated intro for this special. I hope this is something that's going to be continued in the later episodes of the series. I see no reason why it wouldn't. And so that was something that was a really nice treat as a fan of John Harrison's work and as a fan of Creepshow. Now, the first story is the best story, and honestly the only story I liked. It's called Survivor Type. And this is based on a short story by Stephen King. And it deals with this doctor who's unscrupulous, who is not afraid to break the law and sell drugs to get a little extra money on the side. And something happens, and he winds up shipwrecked on an island. And the film, not, I keep saying film because I've been reviewing a lot of films lately, so forgive me. The segment plays out at first with a series of flashbacks that are connected with this character who's stuck on this island, reminiscing about his past. And then once it catches up to the present and it catches the viewer up to speed when it comes to the backstory, then it really focuses in on this disturbing and unsettling fall into madness and despair from this character's point of view. The guy doesn't really seem like a good guy. I mean, this is a guy who was selling drugs on the side even when he was a resident at a hospital. Like, this is a guy who did a lot of shady shit. So when he ultimately meets his demise and his comeuppance, it's rather fitting. But what makes this segment so good is Kiefer Sutherland absolutely kills it here with his performance. This is a really impressive voiceover job by Kiefer. It shows you that Kiefer is an immensely talented actor. I think he always has been. But when actors are able to step out of their comfort zone and they're able to do voiceover work and they're able to bring characters to life with just their voice, that raises their talent and their talent level, so to speak, to a completely higher level for me. And I was really impressed by Kiefer's acting, his voice acting here. He really nailed the pathos, the emotion, and the desperation of this character. Kiefer is what made this segment work and what made it good. Because without Kiefer and without his performance, I don't think this would really be anything that special. But Kiefer giving it his all and having fun with the opportunity really makes it something genuinely good, if not great at times. I don't call it great though, because the animation here, because of the low budget, is very static. It doesn't move that much. There's a little bit of movement here and there, but it's not really anything that's that amazing from an animation standpoint. It's not even the same kind of animation that was in Creepshow 2, let alone Bernie Wrightson's work that was animated in the first film. And speaking of Bernie Wrightson, I really missed that particular style of animation. I felt that with this animated special, the animation and its style didn't really match Creepshow. It felt like a completely different kind of comic book series. So I think that was a huge missed opportunity to not try to embrace and continue to do a homage to EC Comics and that particular style of comic. This looked more like a modern horror comic, and I don't really think that was the right approach. It really makes the segments lack the same amount of atmosphere and mood. This is where you really could have played around with the lighting and really made the comics look like Creepshow, with the bright colors and the garishness and everything. And, the panels and everything. And you really could have gone gonzo with it. And I understand it's a low budget, but I think you still could have pulled that off with a low budget. Maybe it was just one of those things where it was rushed and they just kind of put something together last minute. And if that's the case, okay, all right. But at the same time, I still think you could have put something together last minute that still could have been more closer to what the style of the Creepshow comics really are. But there are some genuinely visceral moments, like when Kiefer Sutherland's character amputates his own foot, and also just the grisly and gruesome nature of this story. It's really quite uncomfortable and unnerving, because as the story goes along, he completely loses his mind and he starts eating himself. And there's a particularly effective sequence of events near the end where he starts to become almost like a zombie, because he looks at his face in a reflection in the water, and because of the heat exhaustion, all the other effects of being stuck on this island, apparently his nose has fallen off. So he just looks like a skeleton with flesh hanging off of it. And that does give this kind of zombie-like appearance. So when he starts eating himself, cannibalizing himself, it's really messed up, but effective horror. And the last few shots when he's biting his fingers and, talking crazily about how they taste like ladyfingers is some effective stuff. The segment did not hold back when it comes to the gruesome nature of this story, and I think that was 100% to this segment's benefit. There was also some nice little homages and nice little callbacks to Stephen King. Like Stephen King, a young Stephen King, is like one of the Doctor's friends in a flashback sequence. So ultimately, I'm not going to say Survivor Type is one of my favorite segments or one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, but I still liked it. I liked it because Kiefer Sutherland really brought it. He gave it 110%, and I think that really made it ultimately a good segment, a satisfying segment for me, despite the static or standard animation that was admittedly a little disappointing. Also, it kind of had this radio play vibe to it, which I think was really cool and different. And that's really what this entire special is more like. It's more like a radio play, with actors playing roles and doing voiceovers and some sound effects, and monologues and dialogue carrying the story instead of the images on the screen. I think with Survivor Type in particular would have been just as effective of a story without even seeing the animation, because of how well, ultimately how well the adaptation was written and how well it was performed. But sadly, the positives stopped there for me, because twittering about the Circus of the Dead, or whatever the fuck the name was. Okay, twitterings from the Circus of the Dead. This segment sucked. This was boring. It was annoying. It was really irritating. It had an alright concept with a circus of zombies, but it never really does it the best justice. Even though there are some decent bits of creepy animation with the zombies, what really completely brings this episode down and just destroys any real enjoyment or the capacity for anything more than just average entertainment is the teleplay by Melanie Dale, and just the fact that the focus of this segment is solely on this bratty, bitchy teenager who's complaining and moaning and groaning about her parents on vacation and talking about how much her life sucks and just twittering nonstop. And the concept, I guess, is different, but it doesn't work because it's an overdose. It's just an overload of Twitter and Gen Z uh, dialogue, and it's just a really cringe-inducing and difficult segment to sit through. Despite the best efforts by some of these voice performers, I'm not really gonna blame the voice actress Joey King. I don't really think this segment's failure is 100% on her. I think it has to do with the script. She's painted in the most unlikable and annoying way possible. She's always on her phone. She's always twittering about shit. And once she gets to the Circus of the Dead and there's zombies, it's the typical, oh, this isn't real. Oh my god, she's just twittering about what happens. Just non-stop Twitter fingers. And I wanted to shove her phone up her ass and throw her into the cage with the lion, because I just could not fucking stand it anymore. So, yeah, this segment has potential, but it's ultimately just completely blown, like a shotgun blast to a zombie's head when the brains fly out, because of this particular setup. Why did they have to make it about some annoying, bitchy, bratty teenager twittering nonstop? Why did they have to do their approach to being hip or cool or current? Like, why do you have to do that? Anytime that somebody who is not of this generation tries to do something that is current and is in line with current vibes and current jargon and things that are currently popular among, teenagers, and tries to do their take on social media, it's a fucking disaster. And this is no exception. So it's really a shame that this segment was so shitty, because the special started out so promising with the good wraparound segment and the animated intro, which is the same intro for all the episodes, but with a much better score. And then you had Survivor Type, which had a really good performance by Kiefer Sutherland and some genuinely unsettling moments and bits of artwork. And then this one, you have some unsettling bits here and there with the zombies, but it's just completely for naught because of this insipid script with just this idiotic and inane focus on this obnoxious, bratty teenager. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the Creepshow Animated Special, except it's worth a watch if you like Creepshow. If you want to see something a little bit different than your average normal anthology, I wouldn't go into it expecting some really high quality animation, because you're going to be disappointed. I mean, most of the time, the animated models, their voices don't even match models where their mouths move. Yeah, the models are just sitting there static, as if you're just hearing their thoughts. And they're supposed to be talking, but their mouths aren't even moving. Probably due to low budget, but at the same time, it does make things look very static and very dull from an animation standpoint. Every now and then there'll be some 3D, there'll be some attempts to try to move things around a little bit with the camera or with a few other attempts at motion, but it's very limited. It's very limited in terms of its movement. So it's a very static animated special in that regard. But at least with the Survivor Type segment, it's an effective bit of radio play. So I think you need to adjust your expectations accordingly. That's all I'm trying to say here with this special. Uh, it's definitely not going to be for everybody, but I'm glad I watched it, even though I did not care for the second segment that much at all. Twitterings from the Circus of the Dead. It was terrible. Um, but at least I still got one good segment and a good Kiefer Sutherland voiceover performance. And I honestly would like to see more of these, with a more of a budget, with more stories, with more animation that isn't so static and cheap. I think there's potential here. I would love to see a Creepshow Animated Special be a Halloween tradition for Shudder and Greg Nicotero, but put more into it. I understand why they weren't able to do that this year, but I'm hoping next year, if they're gonna do it again, they can. They can make the animation like traditional animation instead of a moving comic book. They can have more stories, and they can do some more things, and be more creative with it, and be more out there, and copy more of the style of the EC Comics and of Bernie Wrightson's approach to EC Comics and Creepshow. So there's potential with this animated special going forward. And if this is just a one-off, that's fine too, and that's understandable. But if they ever do decide to make more, I'm still going to be watching, because I want to see what they can do with it. Because it's interesting. It's different. It's something you don't see as much of nowadays. A horror animated special, that's not something that you see very often in today's day and age. So, anyway, thanks for watching my review of a Creepshow Animated Special. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.